What up, what up? WINBUSH here. Today I'm excited to get back into Dem Earth and show you guys some cool stuff. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. Now for those that don't know what Dem Earth is, it's actually a plugin for Cinema 4D. So if I go to the website real quick, it's at cinemaplugins.com. And if you go to Dem Earth, you can see it actually is a map generator built within Cinema 4D, and it's actually one of the best ways to build maps. Like, I use it a lot for work. That's why I'm actually doing this tutorial, because I just picked up a job for another TV show doing maps, so I figured why not do a tutorial on it, especially since I'm using it at the moment. So let me click this out and let's get started. So I'm in Cinema 4D. I'm still in version R21, and at the top, after you install the plugin, you have a Dem Earth tab up here. So what we first want to do is come down here to Dem Earth Object, click on this, and then you'll see a terrain build out real quick. I forget what region it is, but if we want, we can actually just come down to Dem Earth Geocoder tool, and you can just type in the coordinates that you want. So if you know the latitude and longitude, you can type that in here, or if you just want to kind of search it, you can type in where you want to go. So Grand Canyon is always a good place to head to. There's a lot of good terrain there. So type in Grand Canyon, hit enter. Sometimes you need to be a little bit more direct in that, but as you can see, our map snapped to the region that we were looking up. So say like, okay, this is a good piece of the Grand Canyon here, but say like the art director is like, hey, we want to really get high and then push down into the Grand Canyon for whatever reason. And so if we come over here and click on object tag, you have the height and the width you could change here. So the furthest you could go out is 50,000 by 50,000 for the height and the width. And if you look down the lower left hand corner, like if you see the screen freezing out, that means that it's actually loading the map data. It's actually pulling in some DEM data from the internet. And so if we scroll out, we can see that we have a good portion of the Grand Canyon now. And then we can also put some maps on here for textures. So if we come up to map loader, then click on disclaimer, because this is just telling you that all the different maps that you can pick out of here, use them at your own discretion, because you might not have copyright to them to use them in broadcast or movie or whatever you want to use it on. But some of these are open source. Like I believe there's S3 road imagery. Don't quote me on that, but I believe this one is open source. You'd have to go to the website to kind of see what the licensing is for this, but I know for sure for like Bing and Google, you have to actually get licensing from them, but I usually use this and manipulate it. And so we have right here where it says level, this correlates with the tile count down here. So if I move this up a little bit so we can see it better, a tile count is basically whenever it's pulling in the map data from whatever satellite or database, it's going to be tiling each one of these together on our map here and then merging them together to make one large texture. And so right now, at the level of detail at 13, our tile count would be 22,500, which is extremely large. Like if I click on download texture layer, you see it gives us a warning. You're attempting to download this large amount of tiles, and it's pretty much not going to let you do it. It says choose a lower map level or reduce the size. And so it depends on the region that you're in and how much level of detail you want. But usually I find a good number for tile count. I think the highest I was able to get it to was around 3,500. So I just kind of look for the level of detail as I correlate something close to that. Like if I try this, it's still going to give me an error. So it looks like for, if I click on object or area zoom, it looks for around 6. The most detail we could get out of it will probably be 11. Let me see what happens if I zoom it out to 7, or zoom it in to 7, sorry. So if I zoom area zoom in, it's going to push more into the map. Now let me see what map loader says. So now I brought this up to 1444. And this might be too much for it. Yeah, so let's go back to default at 6. And then map loader, just going to leave us at 11. And I have my S3 raw image selected. And then I'm going to download the texture here. And then it will say, would you like to download and compile this many tiles? Click yes. And then you'll see down here again, the lower left hand corner, like everything that's happening in Dem Earth is always going to happen down here. It's kind of hard to see, but you can see that it's actually downloading all the tiles there. And then once it's done, it's going to compile it and instantly merge everything together to give you one large texture. All right, so it looks like our tiles all merged together. So if we look at it now, we have a pretty good textured Grand Canyon region here. And if I come down and flatten a little bit, you can see it's not giving us too much terrain in there. You can see its height is a little bit tall here, but we can make that a little bit taller just to kind of exaggerate it. So if I come over, click back on Dem Earth, click on Object, and then click on down here where it says Remapping, we can actually amplify the height a little bit. So if I just drag this over to the right, you can see our terrain is starting to really build up. So if I go up to 100%, you can see now we can really get into the valley of it. And you can see that it's kind of low poly too. And that's because of the amount of detail that we pulled out when we zoomed out. Let me go to my shading lines here. So you can see by the shading lines, we don't have a lot of polys in here. And so I could change that by right here where it says subdivisions. If I scroll this up to the right, we can add a lot more polygons in here just to make it a little bit more defined if you wanted to. But for this example, I'm gonna stick to 500, but you always have leverage if you want to add more polys to kind of smooth it out and make it look a lot nicer, depending on how close you really need to get to your geometry. Let me turn this back like so. And then too, you'll notice that it made a little material down here. So if I click on this and then I actually click under color, click on this right here, you can locate this texture. So if I click locate image, it will take you to a folder, and this is where I downloaded all your imagery at. But if you ever wanted to go in and manipulate any of the data, you have that luxury to do so. So a lot of times, like I'll use this as a base of my texture, then I'll bring it into Photoshop, manipulate it a little bit just to kind of get around those copyright issues you might have, you know, like mess up the terrain a little bit, mix and match it, and then bring that back into what we have here in World Creator. And once you have this established, all you have to do is bring your new texture in, and it's going to line right up as long as you don't go too crazy with mixing these up. But these are some of the maps that I was working on earlier for a TV show. So it leaves everything downloaded in here until you delete it. But this is just in my cache folder. But I just wanted to show you where that's at in case you want to come in, maybe switch up the colors. Maybe you don't like the brown, so you want to make a little bit more green here. You have that luxury to do so in Photoshop. But say now the client is like, okay, this is a good region right here. We can start high right here, maybe push through some clouds, push down into the valley, but they want to see more of Arizona before we push down. This is actually something that I just recently came across. A client had this note. That's why I know how to do this. And so they wanted even more of the region built out. And so with Dem Earth, we can actually do that now. And as you notice, as I'm zooming out, our viewport's starting to get clipped. So this is a real easy fix. We just come over to edit, come down to project settings. Then right here where it says view clipping, I just usually make this say huge, and boom, and we have no problems no matter how far we zoom out. So that's just a little quick tip there. If you ever have clipping in your viewport, that's how you fix that. But okay, so now we say we want to build some more terrain around this. We actually have a way of connecting several Dem Earth objects together to merge to make one huge terrain here. And I'll show you how to do that now. I'll make sure I have my Dem Earth object clicked. Come up to Dem Earth, come down to Dem Earth object, click this, and you see that it made it a child of our original Dem Earth object. And you can see right here, it actually made a square right here. So if I look inside, if I have this selected, the child, if I select here, I have under my location, it says alignment. And so this is how you're going to move if you want to have it like north of your original position or east or west. You have those options here. So if I click on align, you can see that we have all these different options here. So let's say we wanted to build out more of the east. So I just made that align to the east. And now it moved our box over here. And if I click on map loader right here and just click on download textures, click yes, it should merge these two together. And now we have a perfect merge of our two coordinates together. So say the client is kind of happy with that. So we have more built out to the east, but he's like, we want to start maybe up north, or we just want to pull out really wide. And so you can have up to 9 tiles surrounding your original origin here. So if I come back up to Dem Earth, I'm just going to select a couple of these, and these shall automatically start just going into position. So I'm just going to keep clicking these and build it all the way out. And then the final result, I'll show you what I end up coming up with. And so I wanted to stop it right here because I wanted to show you something. So I deleted the textures in here just so I could show you that if you don't have it textured, you still have your geometry here. So no matter what, we still at least have our geometry here, and then we can texture it with whatever we want. And so I'm going to continue building this out here. And like before, I had to come up and I picked where I wanted my alignment. But if you just want to make sure that you have all 9 tiles, it doesn't really matter. You just come up and click, and it's just automatically going to start placing these. So all I have to do is really add these up to 9, and then it's going to take care of the rest for you. But you can only have up to 9. You can't really go over that. If you need to make a bigger region, I could show you where you need to zoom, and maybe you could build it out that way. Again, it all depends on how close you need to get to your actual terrain, but there's ways to work around this. So it looks like we have all 9 tiles built out here, and we have a good chunk of this southwest region built out. So if I want to texture all of this at once, let's come up and click all of these to make sure they're all selected. Then come over to map loader and just click 11 just to make sure they're all selected at 11, because we don't want to have some at 11, some at 10, some at 12, because they won't really line up. So just select them all, make sure you're on the same level, click download, and it's asking me, do I want to download and compile? So it's going to ask you for each one of these tiles if you want to do this. So you're just going to have to watch it and make sure you click yes for all of them. It looks like our map is done compiling now. So that I'm zoomed out really far out. You can see that we actually have a really large chunk of the southwest region here. We even have some of the Pacific Ocean. So the client should be pretty happy with this. If I zoom in here, I should be able to start pretty high over Arizona. And so we can even, you know, merge some of the edges with clouds and things of that nature. So they usually want to start high and then push in, which this will give you a really strong reference of where we are on this part of the United States. And then we could just zoom all the way down into the map where we need to go and put in our locator. Then if I move down, you can see that we have some good terrain built in here too for our canyon, and it goes all the way out into the ocean. Okay, so say that the client, they're like, okay, that's cool, but maybe for when we're high, can we have the map zoomed out a little bit more or zoomed in a little bit more? Like I was telling you before, we could go over here, and this is something I just noticed too. So you see that we have a black square here. Sometimes all the textures don't come in for whatever reason. It doesn't get all the data. All you have to do is select this square, see where that texture is right there, and then just find a correlating texture. So if I click on this, I can see this is the texture here that correlates with that area. If I could drag this up here. So all you have to do is double click, then click on that, click locate. Then you have access to everything that downloaded. You could go in there and bring it into Photoshop, and then you could just kind of paint over that and you should be fine. Just paint it over, click save, and you should have that filled in. But again, to back where I was saying, if I come over to my region, let's say we want to pull out really far here, come over to object, and then area zoom, let's say 5. So if I click on that, down the lower left hand corner, it's unpacking the data because it actually has to build more data around the perimeter because we're actually zooming out now. And so you can see it needs to fill in some of this data here. And so we just do the same thing as before. We're just going to select all of these, come over to map loader, click download texture, and this should go a little bit faster because we already have a lot of this data already downloaded. Then sometimes it's going to ask you to download more. Like before was downloading 400 tiles, but it looks like for whatever region this is, it has to download 800 more tiles. So we'll just click yes, and we'll let Dem Earth do its thing. It filled in all the regions. It took a little bit to download than expected, and it made some new materials down here, but now we have all of our region filled in that we need, and we should be in a really good place here. And so we still are able to push in pretty close to the Grand Canyon region, and the client should be happy. So I just wanted to share that with you guys on how you can make extremely large maps using Dem Earth. This is something that I'm going to be utilizing a lot in the show that I'm working on. I can't wait to show you guys how everything turns out. So hopefully this helps you guys out a lot. This is something I'm going to be utilizing a lot in this new show that I just picked up, and I can't wait to show you guys whenever it's finished. I can't really tell you guys what I'm working on right now, but if you want to see it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll make the announcement whenever it comes out. And if this did help you out, make sure you leave a comment down below. Give me a big thumbs up. And as always, stay fresh, keep creating, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.